Welcome to Missing the Mark, where we look for meaning in strange places. I'm Christopher. In my video about the God of the Gaps, Veneroth gave me the following succinct summary of a common version of the God of the Gaps atheistic creation myth for religion, which differs from the version I presented in a few key ways. The way I usually hear it is this. 1. God is a mystical fairy dust magic explanation for the world. 2. A scientific, read materialistic explanation of some element of life purges the idea of God from it. 3. We are explaining more and more things, leaving God clinging on to the remaining gaps to remain relevant. 4. Once everything has been explained by science, peace be upon it, then God will have no gaps left to hide in. I think this is a good summary of this particular narrative, which for some reason I identify with Richard Dawkins, though in fairness to him, I'm not sure if he ever suggested it, or it merely sounds like something he would say. In any event, it is also particularly silly because it implicitly rests on the idea that most people are very interested in how the world works. This may seem plausible to someone who has spent his entire life isolated in a basement or a wolf den or some such thing, only reading books on popular science and imagining that all men are like him. This is nothing like the overwhelming majority of people one meets outside of a nerd's imagination, though. And I say this as a nerd who has met a fairly large number of people and has grown used to disappointment. If you doubt how uninterested most people are in explanations of how the world works, consider how boring most people find science classes. Next to math, they are the classes in school which people like the least. And that's only because in that one science class, the teacher lights his hand on fire. That's pretty much its only advantage as far as the average person is concerned. But I'm in a silly mood, so let's actually take this idea seriously and consider how the origin of religion was supposed to have gone, according to this idea, compressing the evolution of it in time. The year is, let's say, 500,000 BC. Two early members of the species Homo sapiens, called Thod and Gok, have just become capable of asking the question, how does this work? Let's watch them develop religion, then shrink it as they make discoveries.
Hey Gok, why wood burn?
Me not know, Thod. Must be big man in sky who make wood burn.
Why?
You know other explanation?
No, hence why me ask question.
Look, Thod and Gok are primitive hominid, that why we can't pluralize word. We need easy answer for small brain.
But why big man big? Why not small?
Because him reach all way down here, need big arm reach here.
That good point. Big man in sky.
But why not big man on ground? Gok say sky. Can Thod disprove sky?
But why Gok say sky? Thod look sky. See no man. Man heavy. Heavy on ground.
Look, this be hard if Thod keep ask question.
Only reason we have conversation is Thod ask question.
No. Me give stupid answer. You stupid. You accept stupid answer.
Oh, then Thod accept.
Also, big man in sky say Thod no mate with Gok wife.
Drat.
Thod have other question?
Why rock not burn?
Big man in sky make rock not burn.
How bird fly?
Big man in sky hold bird up.
Why wolf not fly?
Big man in sky not hold wolf up.
How wolf jump?
Big man in sky hold wolf up short time, then put down.
Good. Thod satisfied.
At this point, we compress time a little, and Gok starts performing experiments.
Thod, me discover why wood burn. Wood made of carbon and hydrogen. They tied together, but if slam oxygen in air into carbon-hydrogen bond break, and release energy. That why wood burn. It not big man in sky. Oh, but big man in sky still make rock burn and bird fly and wolf not fly, right?
Of course. And so it will go on. I'm not actually enjoying this as much as I expected because I dislike writing such unrealistic characters. The sort of occasionalism that this silly explanation of religion posits is not an early idea which is eventually replaced, but instead a rather late idea in response to rather complicated philosophical problems. You only see occasionalism, the idea that there's no actual causality in nature, it's all basically a giant puppet show God is putting on for himself, as a late development in response to complicated philosophical problems. That's why, aside from presumably some ancient Greek, since they thought of everything but Christianity, you only see this coming up in the medieval period in the Islamic world and later in the Christian world, in response to certain aspects of Greek philosophy. You also see it later as a tentative solution to problems Descartes created. Basically, you have to be astonishingly deep inside of some hairy problems before "nothing happened and God did it" seems like a plausible answer to anything. Moreover, this explanation of religion entirely explains away science. If people already had a complete explanation of how the world works, and whatever else you want to say about it, God did everything is a complete explanation, which you accepted, why would you go looking for another explanation? You wouldn't. And there's even a further problem to this, which is that God creating a world according to his reason and making us in his image is an excellent reason to believe that we can figure out how he made the world work. There is no reason in itself why the world should be intelligible to us any more than to a mouse. And in fact, this is why you see atheists like Scott Adams saying that human beings aren't designed to understand the world, we only think that we are. This is why you find atheists saying that we're actually just characters in a really advanced video game. Because if you don't start with the idea that our rationality mirrors that which designed the world, you've got no reason to think that it does. Especially if you think that no rationality designed the world. And I can already hear a gaggle of atheists screaming as one, "But science clearly works, so we might as well keep pushing it until it doesn't. iPhones!" That's not a historical explanation of how people who hadn't done science thought to do it. It's an explanation of how people who have no reason to have ever done science will continue someone else's idea that they inherited. And just look at what they've done with it. A Catholic priest discovered the Big Bang, for which he adduced evidence. Atheists have proposed the infinite multiverse, for which there is no evidence whatsoever. And moreover, which will destroy all basis for rational thought if one believed in it. If everything that can possibly happen does, odds are extremely good that we're in a universe that looked sensible up till now, and will turn crazy in the next moment and stay that way for the rest of it. If you know that you're looking at a subset of infinitely many coin flips, you know that all patterns you see are meaningless because you expect all finite patterns to show up infinitely many times. And it goes on. Atheists have no reason to believe that the world is reasonable, and everywhere you see them proposing that it isn't. Atheists trying to explain race relations can't appeal to God's universal love or the fall of man, so instead they come up with explanations about how logic is a construct of Western hegemony. Atheists who can't appeal to God creating man and woman as complementary come up with explanations about how evaluating solutions on the basis of how well they work is a tool to keep women down, or that everything a woman does is an attempt to steal the resources of some man, or 1,000 other things which are obviously bat guano irrational. Because it is not logically necessary for the world to make sense to us. This sort of absurd explanation of religion is plausible only to people like Richard Dawkins, who were taught religion as children and conflated the religion they were taught with the non-answers that children's questions are usually put off with, and then generalized from his own progression from childhood to whatever approximation of adulthood you want to attribute to that overgrown child, to how adults in times long past behaved. You could almost call this the narcissist's fallacy. All of mankind's history can be summed up in my own progression from childhood to adulthood. Meanwhile, the whole reason why people believe in God, the uncreated creator, is because of questions which the Richard Dawkinses of the world are too immature to ever ask, let alone answer. Why is there something rather than nothing? What is good? Why is it good? Why is good better than evil? Why does the world work at all? Why do the balances not topple over? These and other questions lead one to God, and if my memory serves, at one time or another, Richard Dawkins has explicitly repudiated them all. In the tiny little room which Richard Dawkins has locked himself into, he comes up with wildly implausible explanations for the things he only partially sees through the one dirty window he looks through. The explanations don't explain, but he's okay with that, because the problems are all in the parts of the real world he can't see. I suspect it's much the same for the other atheists who find this ridiculous story about the origin of religion plausible. Until next time, may you hit everything you aim at.